Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Friday. Yeah, love Friday. It's awesome. Sit back, relax, leave the driving to us. We got a great show lined up for you. 800-951-0592. The website at allamericangold.com. And you know what we do. Physical delivery of wealth insurance. Gold and silver, and we're going to end with a bang. You know, yesterday we started with those silver maple leafs. We've got not that, well, about half of it through really quickly, because right now silver is up about 25 cents. It finished the day down yesterday. Gold finished the day down yesterday. The Dow was down over 600 points yesterday. And now gold and silver. Here's the great part. Gold didn't even really threaten 2,300, which is a really good sign, and kind of that new higher high there. And then silver got close to that 30, held it. Now it has come all the way back, $30.50 to the ounce. But we had, and it was probably my fault. The customer didn't know exactly what they had, and led to a little confusion. So these are Canadian 1-ounce maple leafs. They were all sealed. So all these cases were sealed, unopened. There's 25 ounces in a roll. So we contacted the people yesterday. If you wanted to add the 5, you could. But it's going to be, we're going to make it a little better deal today. I've got 95 rolls left. That's it. That's all that's left. And remember, this is below cost and now well below cost because silver's even higher right now. But a roll of 25 is going to be $785. Okay, so we got 95 rolls. That's $31.40. So yesterday it was $31.50. So you're actually going to save yourself another 10 cents. It costs a little more because you're getting 5 more ounces of silver. But if you want to buy a case, 500 ounces, their cases, they're 500 ounces. They just have 20 rolls of 25, and we've got 25 rolls of 20. So it's a little bit confusing, but $15,625 for a case, and we've got about 4 cases. We don't have any more than that, but it won't last. But that's at 31 1/4, $15,625, and then $20 gold pieces. I'm going to have them on sale all weekend long at $2,550. So that's a big savings there as well. So we've got something for everybody. We're going to be closed Monday. It will be Memorial weekend. So Jason and I, we're going to take the 3-day weekend. We won't be back until Tuesday. The Maple Leafs, you have to call. And don't worry, if you've never called before, listen, we're not like everybody else. Okay, you're not going to get phone calls from us, every day for the rest of your life. You're not going to get emailed. You're not even going to hear from us again if you don't call us. That's just how we operate here. 800-951-0592. Obviously, 2 great items, but it's not often you get to buy things below cost. This case, way below cost, because we're talking about cost here of almost $32.50 just cost, and we're at $31.40 and $31.25 on those Maple Leafs. But it's great. It's a great Memorial Weekend special. Just kind of worked out that way, didn't it, Jason?
And you're less than $1 over spot now, so you're talking about 100-ounce silver bar type prices, and Joe, it gets confusing. The 25 coins, 20 rolls. So we have about 80. I would say we have about 80 rolls, Joe, because we have 4 boxes, 20 rolls per box, and it's a great deal. It's a great deal. I mean, we had enough people that understood this yesterday, even though because a Canadian used to make 20 coin rolls before, but they switched to this at some point. So since we didn't know what was coming, we went out there, and the price is the same. The $31.50 an ounce, Joe, kept the price the same. Actually knocked off 10 cents.
Yeah,
but
a little better.
Great way to go. Great way to go. 25 ounces per roll, 20 rolls for the case. If you want to buy a case, highly advise anybody that wants to get a large amount, get the case. It's a sealed. It's always nice to get a sealed case, Joe.
A sealed case, and you're like, what, 75 cents over spot? I mean, that's just great value there. 800-951-0592. And if you want the sealed case, $15,625 gets it done for you. And it's been quite the week this week. We had the Fed minutes, which were opposite of what Jay Powell had said in the Fed. Meanwhile, there was only one thing opposite, right? Quantitative easing, really, because I guess they're easing the tightening. Yeah, they pretty much all agreed on that. Yeah, okay, and that wasn't real hard because there's so much debt coming. They really have no choice. By the end of the year, there will be no more quantitative tightening when it comes to treasuries. They're down. They're only down now to $25 billion in treasuries a month. There was no debate about the economy slowing in the Fed minutes. The only thing that really came into picture was there was, and again, they used several, various, some. I mean, they used every adjective to describe more than one Fed governor worried that inflation, it's not looking the way they were hoping. And of course, we've been saying that all along. Patriot Radio News Hour. Jason and I, we're going to be right back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason on this Friday. Don't wait on these Maple Leafs. The phones are already going here. It's just too good of a deal to pass up here. The roll at 25,785. The case, 15,625. That's 500 ounces. But either way, you're talking way below cost. At the case level, you're talking like 75 cents over. At the roll level, it's not even that much more, right? I mean, it's like what my public school education, I think 90 cents over. Yeah, don't forget those 20s too at 25.50. 800-951-0592. A quick look at the markets. Like I said, really tough day in the markets yesterday. A little bounce back here on the Dow. The Dow's up about 140. The S&P's up 43. The Nasdaq's up 190. The 10-year note coming off a little bit today. Remember, got back to 4.5. Right now at 4.47. Crude oil's higher by 50 cents. Gold's up 4 right now, 23.41. Silver is up over almost 25 cents here, 30.51. And that's the May contract. May contract's coming to an end. Matter of fact, when we get back on Tuesday, the May contract will be over. The next contract for silver isn't till July. And already, just if you want to look at the July spot silver price, $30.70 on the July contract, just to kind of, incentivize you just a little bit more if you needed that. But again, remember, this is about getting ready, right? And a lot of you have been doing it for a lot of years. We have customers that have been buying gold from us since the mid-'90s. And it's worked out really, really well for them. And buying and continue to buy, that's always the best strategy. But as we see the booms and the bust and the boom and the bust, we see what gold does. We see what silver does. It's kind of funny. I think the first roll of silver I ever sold was like $125. I'm not kidding. $125. They're like $800, right? I mean, that was a roll of Silver Eagles. The first $20 gold piece I sold, it wasn't even $400. I want to say it was like $360, maybe $350, $375, somewhere in that range. And now the difference, when we think about every cycle, think about when the dot-com bubble burst. I mean, what was the debt then? $4 trillion, something like that, right? Then we got into the financial crisis, and the debt then was like $8 trillion, right? And now, right, we know we're getting ready for the next big blow up here, and we've got debt. Let's face it, the almost $7.5 trillion that's still on the Fed's balance sheet, that counts. I don't care. I know they don't want to count it, but it counts. We're well over $40 trillion. We're going to go back to $1 trillion every 100 days again. Starting in June, we're going to go back, and actually, here's the problem. It's not going to be $1 trillion. It's going to be more like $1.2 trillion. By the end of the year, could be as high as $1.6 trillion already. Interest on the debt is going to surpass everything we spend, with the exception of Social Security, by the end of this year. Those are facts. And by the way, by the end of next year, it may pass Social Security, the interest. You need to be so much more diversified than ever before. The situation calls for it. This is why we tell you, hey, gold and silver, it's got to be there. Got to have it. But check out our friends over at YRefi. If you've got $50,000 or more, maybe it's in your IRA. Maybe it's sitting in your bank account. I don't know where it is. Some of you can even call them and check them. You may be able to use your 401k to do it. But it's not correlated to Wall Street. See, that's the big part. That's what I love about it. And you get up to 10.25% fixed rate of return. What does that mean? Doesn't change. What if this happens? What if that happens? It doesn't matter. You've got a piece of your portfolio that you know what you're going to get. Because, Jason, I think that's really the big question, isn't it? What are we going to get? What is Wall Street really going to look like next year, the year after that, as all the spending of debt gets crowded out, and we know taxes and everything else have to go higher. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster here, and they're getting ready. Look at NVIDIA yesterday. What did they say about their chip sales? How great it was. I mean, it was fantastic. But then they said, yeah, it's all data storage chips, guys. Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're getting ready for that digital currency. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or just call them at 888-YRefi24. Very interesting today. An article comes out of the Financial Times. And, Jason, it had to do with Janet Yellen. Now, remember, Janet Yellen, she's been telling everybody, don't worry. Oh, inflation's fine. It's fine. It's going to go down. Nobody has to worry. Everything's wonderful. And we've done such a great job. Well, apparently she's changing her tune, kind of like the Fed minutes, changing her tune. And she said that there have been wages that have gone up significantly. Substantial price increases important to people. Well, gosh, what other price increases are there? Of course they're important. All price increases are important to people, right? I mean, what kind of nonsense is it? Was it not important to the cows and the chickens and the birds? I mean, of course it's important to people. And relatively in a short period of time that were very noticeable. They see it when they shop for food. They see it in terms of rentals. They see it with higher mortgage rates. It's tough for young people who would like to buy a house to enter the market. I'm like, what? It's tough for anybody to buy a house. Care how old you are. And, Jason, I find it interesting that all of a sudden now Janet Yellen's trying to say, oh, yeah, well, maybe there is some inflation. I think that just tells you the trouble that they're really in.
I think so too, and I think with the just the murmurs from the Fed of a rate hike now. They're supposed back in December they were going to have 6 rate reductions or however many they had on the table late last year, and now the murmurs of a rate hike and Janet Yellen mentioning the word inflation. I think that's them trying to cover their backsides, because if something's coming that's really ferocious in inflation-wise, they want to say that they saw it coming in some level, right, Joe? And how many times, Joe, have I said it, especially late last year coming into this year? I wanted to let people understand that gold typically, this is not 100%, but gold typically is a leading indicator of inflation. And I had customers that have been buying gold for way longer than me saying that, they went through 2011 when gold spiked. And they said what happened between late February and April this year, the way gold went from $2,000 to $2,400, it was going up $100 a week for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They said they'd never seen anything like that. Why do I get the feeling we're going to be echoing that later this year and early next year about the inflation? We haven't seen anything like this. It's an echo. Gold calls out to what's going to happen, and the echo is the inflation that happens after, Joe.
And I got to point out, as we enter here into the summer months now, hurricane season, this is vitally important because of inventories, because of where these refiners are. Record number of storms being predicted, all about water temperature. Right now, the water temperature in the Gulf is already where they consider the peak to be. So the peak water temperature probably like late August, like hurricane season, really doesn't get going until late July, early August. They're saying this year the water's already at these levels, and everybody better be ready. I think we're going to get we know about insurance. This is going to be a bad year. Again, for home insurance rates, I think it's going to be a potentially very volatile year in terms of energy. We're really, I guess we'll hope and pray that doesn't happen, but they're not talking about that. That's not what Janet Yellen was talking about. I think they know there's structural things built in here that aren't going away, and that they were, and this has been the Fed's philosophy. Let's just hope. We're going to watch the data, and let's just hope things go away. Let's just hope rent goes down. Listen, how are you going to have rents go down when you got 3 million people illegally coming into the country? They all got to live somewhere. Right? They're not sitting out in the streets and all this and that. They're not. They're getting put up. They're getting it paid for. Jason, I just don't see it. And it's very interesting how 2 weeks ago at a press conference, Jay Powell said he didn't see stagflation. He didn't see inflation. We just need a couple of good months. And then 2 weeks later, here come the Fed minutes with people talking about maybe raising rates. And then today, here comes Janet Yellen. All of a sudden, oh, my gosh, wait a minute. Yeah. People are getting affected here.
And what did he say? No stag and no inflation? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah,
no stag and no inflation.
No inflation, yeah.
Well, I don't know. It sure sounds like they're worrying a little bit about one of those two at least. I don't think they're going to admit stagflation. I don't know if they'll ever admit stagflation, right, Joe? I don't think. Boy, but that would make them look bad. So, but inflation. Well, they kind of got to admit that when it's going to happen, and that they got to do something about it. So, I mean, that's all he's talked about in the last few years after the inflation happened, is about raising rates and staying on top of inflation. Watch the data. Well, suddenly
watch the data.
We're seeing they're watching inflation coming, is what it sounds like. It sounds like they give us the lagging numbers, but they get to see the up-to-the-minute numbers. I wonder how bad those up-to-the-minute numbers are getting, Joe. Remember I said the year-over-year numbers after this last one were going to go up the next couple of months. Those numbers are going to be worse even if things stay the same. So just based off that, Joe, you're going to see an uptick in inflation. And I think they're seeing something much worse to even talk about hiking rates after all the rate reduction talk.
Yeah, and Jamie Dimon warned yesterday about, hey, a hard landing isn't the worst outcome. That's not the worst outcome. See, I'm a hard landing guy, and I've been a hard landing guy. And what do I mean by that? Because I've been telling all of you, I know when inflation's going away. I know. And I said it over and over and over and over again. Demand destruction. 10, 15, 20 million people lose their jobs, and inflation goes away. Now, the problem will be it'll never go back, right? That's the problem, right? Are we going to be able to get a $5 combo meal at McDonald's ever again? Probably not. Probably not, right? We'll get like a promotion and then that's it. But having said that, Jamie Dimon yesterday said, hey, that would be a better outcome than the stagflation outcome, which means hard landing and inflation doesn't go away. And you know what? I think he knows that these guys are going to try to print more money. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason wrapping up the week here. They're going fast. The rolls of silver maple leafs. We're down. We got less than 70 rolls now. So we started with 95. They're 25 in a roll. So they're $785 for the roll. If you buy a case is 500 ounces. Same as a U.S. Silver Eagle case. It's at $15,625 for a case. Just to give you an idea, a case of Silver Eagles right now, $20,000. $20,000. So you're saving almost $4,400 and getting the same amount of silver. Both even the roll at $785, $31.40. The case at $31.25. Well below cost. Pretty close to spot, really, when you think about it. And then $20 gold pieces, $2,550. The gold you can get at allamericangold.com all weekend long. The Maple Leafs, unfortunately, are going to be call only. We won't have any left by the end of today. So that is going to be call only. Get those put away. And we're wondering what's going on. What's different here? What do they know that they're not telling us? Here's one thing I already know. Tsunami of debt coming the second half of this year. That's a fact. Every month, interest rates don't go lower. You're going to have more and more banks wither under the pressure. That's just what it's going to be. I mean, everybody's talking about, hey, a bank failure a week once it starts. That's maybe some weeks you get 2 bank failures, 3 bank failures. That's what it looks like. On the inflation side, prices aren't retreating. Even though they're trying to say they are, they're not. I mean, we all see it. Everybody sees it. Now, as an example, how about crop prices? Because they actually got lower. They did. Corn went down, wheat went down, all this stuff went down. Guess what? Wrong. Droughts, frost, too much rain, not enough rain, you name it. The 9 farm commodities. Not only has it turned higher, it is headed for the largest weekly gain since last July. Chicago wheat futures, the highest in over a year. Concerns, problems in Australia. Problems, obviously, Russia, Ukraine, we already knew about that. Coffee, orange juice, all of them at record highs. Cocoa, corn. Jason, there's all of this stuff that was supposed to get cheaper, and it's just not happening. And then how about an item like crawfish? Apparently, crawfish, the harvest is down 90%. Remember when crab, you couldn't get crab, and crab legs are now, I don't even know what a crab leg costs now. It's a small fortune. Crawfish now, they're saying, was $4, is now $16 a pound. So what is that? A 400% increase. If you're a crawfish eater, you like that Cajun New Orleans stuff, you better buy it now because, Jason, these prices are absolutely insane. And this is the stuff that we're talking about that it doesn't matter every week, whether it's a product that comes, you got to mine it. Right? We talked about copper and tin. Now, one plant in Australia goes down, and now aluminum's on fire. Gold, silver, anything that gets planted, rice, coffee. Now wheat's back to these super high prices. It just doesn't seem to end. And this is kind of the problem. The whole world, essentially, everybody's in the same boat. There's not a lot of excess supply of anything and any little thing. Bad weather. Weather was too good, too much rain, not enough rain. Now we got to worry about hurricanes and everything else. It's just really setting up to be, a reigniting of the inflation that they promised us they had under control.
Yeah, it's the drum that we're going to keep beating and talking about on the show over and over and over again. I mean, before the inflation got hotter a couple of years ago, we had regular inflation that everyone's supposed to just accept. The regular inflation is something that's been robbing people for generations, and people just accepted it. Of course, the 70s and 80s, it woke everybody up for a short time because it flared up really bad. Well, we have another flare-up. It's happening. And people are feeling it a lot more, waking some people up. But, Joe, there should be zero inflation. We can have a society with zero inflation. America had this for over 100 years. And it's just a crooked system that's designed to benefit the few at the on the backs of the rest. And I always get sick of talking about the Fed. I don't mind. There's always going to be rich and powerful people. That's one thing. There's always going to be rich and powerful people, right, Joe? There are always going to be people that have those responsibilities. But that doesn't mean we need to pay for it, right, Joe? We shouldn't have to pay for their position. That's the whole thing that's always irritated me. There's always going to be rich people. Who cares, But this inflation, this is a thing that was on purpose. This is not accidental. No matter what the Fed ever says or any banker, this inflation was a purposeful event. And they could say, oh, it got out of our control. I don't know. Yeah, they do know. They created it on purpose, Joe.
What a great point. And how stupid are we? You mean we had a system that there was no inflation whatsoever? Now, of course, they tell you, the gold, it didn't work. Really? It didn't? Didn't we become a superpower on a gold system? Didn't we? Isn't that right? We ran balanced budgets. I mean, we really, if you don't count World War I and World War II, we hardly had any debt at all. Of course, World War I started as soon as we got a banking, as soon as we got a federal bank, right? A central bank, right? Here comes World War I, here comes World War II. But so many people, you tell people, the gold, just turn on the idiot box, turn on the stock channel. The gold system didn't work. It didn't work. Yeah, it did. Just didn't make the bankers happy. That was who wasn't happy. Everybody else, I think, was pretty happy with it. Patriot Radio News Hour. Think about this. Now we got to worry about, we've got so much debt and nobody will buy it. I mean, that's nuts. That's insanity. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason wrapping up this week. We're going to have gold probably between 2,700 and 3,000 before the end of the year because these guys can't help themselves. They're going to print money. They're going to print money. I mean, they're already down starting, next week. We're only going to sell $25 billion worth of treasuries. Went from 60 to 25, and quickly it will be zero. The tsunami of debt is coming. I mean, everybody and their mothers talking about how big the deficits are going to be. And the problem is, this year's going to be bad. Next year's going to be way worse. Way worse. And I think this is what Jamie Dimon was really talking about. Hey, a hard landing's not the worst outcome. Sorry, Double J. Sorry, you're wrong. The worst outcome is stagflation, which is a hard landing with inflation, which only means one thing, right, Jason? Which means the Fed's going to print. And then that's what it means. And Jamie Dimon knows that they can't help themselves. I mean, we're going to have a silver price. I mean, silver's already 30 plus. Could be as high as 50. Don't sit on your hands here. I know, but you're like, but Joe, the Dow's still 39,000. And, Donald Trump may win. Please, come on. Come on, guys, wake up. They're going to have no effect on that. They can't stop it. What, do you think they can go back in time? They're going to get the time machine out, go back in time, and get Congress and the Fed to stop printing all the money? It's too late. It's inevitable, and it's unstoppable. People are talking about it's going to be a repricing. What does that mean, repricing? Well, remember, how I talk about how they don't want price disclosure? Why does the Federal Reserve manipulate the markets? Right? Why did they do quantitative easing? Why did they buy almost $9 trillion worth of debt? Because they don't want true price discovery. Why do they pretend, well, if we just move interest rates a little bit, we can affect things? Because they don't want true price discovery. Why did they create the bank bailout fund? Why did they create all the funds that they've created? Because they don't want true price discovery. And then they talk about commodities repricing. They talk about gold repricing. They talk about silver repricing. They're not repricing. That's disingenuous. All as they're doing is going to the price they should have been had they not tried to cover things up, right, Jason? If they were allowing for true price discovery, we wouldn't be in this mess. We wouldn't have a boom and bust cycle.
No, I mean, there are always business cycles. There's ups and downs. You could call them recessions and I guess an upward cycle. I mean, they had these in the 1800s. They had cycles, right, Joe? But unfortunately, the few bad cycles that were in the 1800s were caused because the bankers were trying to get their central bank back. There's a massive depression that happened that they don't really talk about in the 1830s, going into late 1830s, going into the 1840s. But that's because the bankers, working with the independent banks of this nation, the Bank of England, they sucked all the money out. They wanted to punish Andrew Jackson for eliminating the central bank by drying up all liquidity, actual gold and silver coins, and it worked for a few years. There was this massive depression, but because the central bank, the second bank of the United States, was gone, in about a 4-year span, the whole thing was over. And America went through probably 25 years of the most prosperous time in America's history before the bankers stroked the flames of the Civil War in the 1860s. It's just every single time you see any kind of problems in this country, it's always because somebody wants a bigger piece, Joe. Somebody wants to create that money. And then that gold and silver, so pesky. Just get it out of the way. It competes against what we do, which is we should run the money. We're so smart. You don't understand money. We'll handle that. And how many times have you heard me say, Joe, hey, don't worry about your money. If you don't worry about your money, somebody else will, right?
Such a great point. And when you really think about what it is that they convince people is, well, see, here's the problem. See, when there are these cycles, right? So there are economic cycles. Of course there is. Mm-hmm. Well, if we can just print money, right, then we don't have to have the cycle, right? Somehow, oh no, we can defy the laws of economics if we can just print money. And for 50 years, they have defied the laws of economics, unhinged when they finally broke the gold standard in 71. And look at what they've done. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if you call me or not. Because I already know. As soon as the next crisis starts breaking, this phone won't stop ringing. And unfortunately for all those people, they're going to be paying way more than they should have. You got to prepare ahead of time. Ask any good prepper, right, Jason? You can't prepare afterwards. Hey, the power went out. I better go buy a generator. Yeah, good luck with that. It doesn't work that way, does it? Get that silver and gold put away. And obviously today, just, for the 2 days here, a ridiculous deal on silver maple leaf. $785 for a roll of 25. Only $15,625 for a case. Patriot Radio News Hour. Jason and I wrapping up a Friday. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Final segment here. Patriot Radio News Hour. Morgan Spurlock died today. He was the guy. He did the Super Size Me. Remember he ate like McDonald's like every day for like a year? Yeah, something like that. Well, he died of cancer. Maybe he shouldn't have ate all that McDonald's. But anyway, I just saw that. Kind of weird, right? But anyway, I got all sidetracked with that. What was I going to say? See, now I've lost it.
Silver. We talk about silver maple leaf. So we have a few left to sell.
Oh, that's what I go. Thank you for reminding me. So, okay, listen, we're down to 48 rolls. So if you want a case, we only can do 2 of them, and that's, someone, buys 9 and we can only do 1 of them. So rolls of silver maple leaves are $785. You get 25 ounces. That's $31.40, by the way, if you're doing the math. $785, a case of silver maple leaves. $15,625. So more than $4,000 less than a case of silver eagles. But we're just running out of them. We started yesterday with 8 cases. We're going to wrap it up here today. Get on it. 800-951-0592. And, and again, this is the situation we find ourselves in. The debt doesn't stop. The government printing trillions of dollars more than it has. I mean, we're running record-sized budget deficits with an economy that has full employment. I mean, beyond full employment. GDP, but it was 3+ last year. Right? If anything, we should have ran the smallest deficit in a decade. Didn't happen. Instead, we're running the biggest. Instead, we're running the biggest. And now everybody's talking about this avalanche of debt on top of, look at the consumer. Look how much debt is out there. Whether it's credit card debt, auto debt, mortgage debt, everything costs so damn much. And that's just the symptom. inflation just, because you got to go to college, I think, to get dumbed down to not know what inflation is. Inflation's the printing of the money. That's the inflation. And they're not stopping. Remember, oh my gosh, we can't do this to the grandkids. Remember that nonsense in the 90s? Hey, I got news for you guys. Yeah, these grandkids, they're already here. All of us alive, we're all, maybe if you're at the end of it, you'll just see the start of it. Everybody else, if you plan on walking the face of this earth for the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see it. You're going to see what happens when bankers decide that they don't need to follow the laws of economics. And that was the choice they made. And remember, that was the reason why they said they needed power. I mean, they did tell us the plan. Oh, yeah, anytime there's a slowdown, we're just going to print money. Well, now they've just decided we'll just print money. 800-951-0592. Once again, the Maple Leafs are call only. And then the $20 gold you can call. We'll have that allamericangold.com. Go to the shopping cart all weekend long. Jason and I will be back on Tuesday. God bless. See you next week.